One. Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Cunts relaunch. I am Marissa. I am the one of the original co-founders of Cosmic Cunts, and today we've got a very special guest for our relaunch. We have Elle Russ, a thyroid expert and author of Confident as Fuck, one of my favorite fucking books. Um, and I'm like really particular about my the possessiveness of my books. Like I don't share my shit, but we've got extra copies of your book here in the house. And so I'm okay, and I feel really good about sharing your book with some of my friends, and it's been returned to me. I'm like, oh, thank God, because I've got like highlights and shit book-eared, dog-eared on some pages. So thank you for coming on today, especially today. Today is not just our relaunch, but today is the Capricorn new moon, right? It is the second new moon in December, which makes it a black moon. But this new moon energy is all about truly letting go, and leaving behind what no longer works for our path, what we don't want to continue. We have to do kind of a clean slate with this new moon in order to receive our manifestations. And I think, especially as a spiritual person, I have found so many times when watching and experiencing other healers, other spiritual people, it's very fucking kind of intimidating, right? People are like, you have to do this in order to receive your manifestations. You have to fucking ABC or it's not going to work. And that puts a lot of pressure on the spiritual healing, on the practice. And so I think it's so important today to talk about like the rawness and the authenticity of just fucking being confident in yourself and not worrying about like what other people are doing, but coming back into self and finding the power within. And that is something that you have absolutely mastered and have been sharing that knowledge. And you've been a very important person in my spiritual and healing journey in finding myself. So thank you. Um,
Well, I
welcome.
love you, and you've become such a good friend, and it's just so nice to have someone with the same sick sense of humor. And of course, I've known your hubby for a while. I want to touch on something you brought up right from the beginning, which is the this intimidation in the spiritual realm of people being like, "Okay, you got to do this, got to do this." 'Cause let me just throw this out there: the term spiritual adulting. Okay. If you light your candle every day and that's your yummy ritual, but like shit's not right unless you light that candle, you got a problem, man. What are you doing it for? Do you know what I'm saying? If you feel that you have to do a thing in order to get there, do you know what I mean? So I would just say, hey, loosen up on the reins. Like whatever you can do, you can do. And if if you miss the lit candle or the, it's just what are you, who is it for then? It's all about the ritual. So you can become too attached to some rituals that then make you spiral down as if like you've missed something, therefore you're not gonna, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I saw somebody post on TikTok the other day. He was like, I'm kind of mad at y'all spiritual healers. Like, you guys are like really just like, it has to be this way or no fucking way. Because you're like, you've passed the realm of healing and being, ascending to adhere to consumerism and capitalism. And so it's like you went so hard, you went to the other fucking side, right? Like,
I
and,
remember in college getting into sort of like a little bit of a thing with one of my like across the dorm mates who was like seriously hungover. And she was like, "Oh God, oh my God, I gotta go to church. I gotta go to church." And I was like, "Whoa, hold on, like why do you gotta go to church?" And she was like, "Well, because like I have to go to like my parent." And I was like, "Okay, well, hold on a minute. Like I don't even know if your God and Jesus would be stoked about you rolling in there without the proper intention that you're
oh,
just going to go check something off your list, but you're really just like hungover and sleeping during the message that's given to you. So again, it's like this attachment to the ritual of going versus what's the integrity behind your intention in going in the first place. And you can do that at home or anywhere else, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I think I would probably say, like, had she not gone, but then at home was able to do something herself, it would have been better than the trip she made there, Anyway,
Yeah, and
but yeah.
I grew up Catholic, Mexican Catholic, and something that still traumatizes me to this day. But it was always, my grandma would cry, like you have to go to church. It's a mortal sin, and it's like,
Guilt, yeah.
isn't God everywhere? And she'd be like, no, he's at the church.
Right. Well, yeah, and then it's like,
It's
listen,
like, oh my
I
God.
was just talking with a friend of mine who a doctor of theirs suggested a spiritual book, and my friend pushed it right back and said, "I have a lot of religious trauma from my family, so I'm
Yeah.
not available for, you know what I mean?" And I understand that too,
Yeah, yeah, I
right?
respect that fucking boundary. I respect that shit
I respect that.
so
It's just like they have
hard.
their own way of, evolving, and it doesn't involve that because it's something they avoid. So yeah, it's so spiritual adulting, right? Like just do what you do for you, not because you think you have to, and look at how you might be too attached to something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about when Liz and I started this podcast, it was all about falling into the authenticity of just like listening to your heart, listening to your intuition. What feels right to you? How do you feel like you're creating magic? And I got to tell you, when I felt my most powerful, I was working full time. I was a student full time, but I was an art student, studio arts. And so day in, day out, I was just fucking painting. And that is where I fucking found myself. And I gotta tell you, like, that felt like my church to me. Like, this is my spiritual homecoming. This is where I'm making my magic. Like, all my fucking chakras cleared out, and I was able to dive in. I was able to
You know what another
transmute.
term for surfing is? Maybe you've heard this in Hawaii, but another term used for like being out there surfing, which I love, Church of the Open Sky.
Church of the Open Sky. It's like you were, yeah, yeah, you're
And
in
that
it.
and that's my church is nature, and for other people it's whatever, a
Yeah,
corner of the art studio, whatever puts you in a place, right? So yeah, I think I like to, people maybe need to switch that up for 2025 and think about either creating your own space within your own place or seeing
yeah.
what works for you. If you want to go and be present somewhere else, where is that? Maybe it's a museum, around all of this old art. Maybe it's an art studio. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about getting grounded in the present state that you are. You don't necessarily have to get to these places where you feel most in tune with the divine. But let's talk about the grounding, getting confident in ourselves, finding the divinity within to just be present and grateful in the fucking moment. Like, can I get myself into this space where I can still tap into that divinity without putting the pressure of going to this specific ritual. Like, so
Let
finding,
me jump in there. So, because we're sort of on the topic a little bit, I want to talk about confidence and how it
yeah,
relates to God and faith, because I think it's important if people have either an upbringing or they're conflicted in some way with what they've been taught versus what they've learning now or coming into adulthood, whatever it is. Okay, so true faith is really having a sense of confidence connected to you,
mm,
feeling accepted by God, whatever, Allah, whatever it is, alien, whatever you believe in, okay? And that your future is secure because God is watching over you. So, the people that are like scared into like, don't say good things about yourself, humble, humble, or who were taught that in religion, it's just illogical. Here's the thing, it's illogical to declare a faith in God but have no confidence in yourself, because that means you don't have faith in your God. So if you are religious and you're out there or you really do resonate with that, then you have the biggest like primordial baseline of faith to actually be confident. But a lot of people feel like they're being watched or like they can't do this because they're told, oh, that's not right, you've got to be humble. And I just look at that and I'm like, Jesus was confident and also humble. Okay, so if we're looking at
mm,
like the main guy in a lot of people's story, not my story, I'm not a Bible believer, I'm not any scroll religious text believer, but Jesus was confident and humble. It's not a contradiction. Okay, so God has no issue with self-worth, right? So some people have this like false sense or notion of Christianity based on this character of Jesus, but he was anything but boring and safe. He was strong and courageous and confident. Okay. He was bold. He was authentic, right? And clearly lived a life of significance if this is what you believe. So, I don't know about this holy merit and virtue and oh humility. Like to be proud of oneself is a sin. No, it's not, motherfucker. Good luck on life. How are you gonna tell the employer how great you think you are for the job? You're just gonna sit there and go, I don't know, I'm just a humble servant. I'm just here. No, you're not. You better tell me as your employer why you're getting the job. And in that case, you better list all the things that you're awesome, what's awesome about you. So for those that are religious and think that being proud of oneself is a sin is you have to have the genuine self-pride of yourself. And if you don't, how can you recognize anyone else's? So it's a little bit contradictory there. So it's just people who claim to be religious yet lack self-esteem and confidence have to resolve those contradictions. You've got to develop a faith or any kind of faith, right? So what I say is confidence really is just the sum of two things. It's the thoughts you think and the actions you take. You can change the thoughts you think, you can change the actions you take. It's at everyone's disposal. Everybody can create confidence and cultivate confidence. And if you're religious, I would say, and you're feeling weird or like you're not supposed to be, or there's elements that you think confidence is going against your faith, check yourself and the people and, who you're reading about, because they were bold and
Yep.
also humble.
And I've had this conversation with family members. It's like, how can you deny what your God made?
Right.
If I am a creation of the good Lord, honoring myself is of the utmost importance. Because if I'm not, that's the fucking blasphemy. That's
I,
where it is.
I would say that's the FU to your own maker
That's
in
the
the way
fuck
that you
you. Like,
see it. Yeah, absolutely. And
and
so
everybody's like, we're not as perfect as God or whatever. And it's like, this is why I really love ancient cultures, like Greek mythology, especially is like, you know what? Our gods are pretty fucked up. They do some weird shit. They will fucking procreate with their parents, their siblings. They don't give a fuck. They are awful, and they will do
there's
shit
a lot of them.
for vengeance. Yeah, yeah. It's like, bless them. They take care of us. They just keep shit real.
Well,
And
I mean, people just choose to ignore certain parts of the Bible where, like, you can sell your children into slavery. Oh, no, no, we're not going to look at that. We're not going to take that.
we're
So,
not.
again, it's just like what my biggest thing is you always have to question your beliefs about everything. Okay. Why do you believe the things that you do? That's what I would love everyone to do in 2025 is to take inventory. What do you believe in? It doesn't even matter what it is or what it's about. Start to challenge it. Critical thinking is the key. So if you critically think about faith and religion and all of that, it just makes no logical conclusion that you wouldn't be confident, have self-esteem, and move forward in life being bold.
Exactly, exactly. And also another thing that has come up recently is, I've had friends who are starting these projects. I've restarted this project, and we always have to battle with, even it doesn't matter on the scale, but we always have to really face that imposter syndrome right in the fucking face. It usually comes up like, can I do this? They're the doubts. And I there are parts of your book especially that I try to recall in those times. And yes, I'm brand new at this, but I'm also brand fucking new, so I'm allowed to make the mistakes and then correct as I go. Nothing has to be set in stone. And I think right now, especially in this culture, this society, this whole cancel culture has everybody afraid to kind of put the fucking first foot forward. Because if I fuck up, we're done. There is no room for growth. There is no room. There's no forgiveness for making mistakes and learning from them. You fuck up once and it's like, we're done. We're canceling you. And so in that way, that's also very fucking traumatic, I think.
I guess there are, yeah, and there are degreeing levels of the consequences of canceling and what they might be related to, right? So you have to know going in, if you're pursuing a life of political journalism, your shit is going to get raked over the coals nonstop. 50% of the people are going to hate you. And then if you're on the other side, 50% of it just like, so you've got to gauge your own consequences, what you're willing to be there for. Is your cause and the canceling or upsetting people worth the fight, worth it because your message is great? Look, I've got friends that are health coaches and in their bikinis and stuff, they're getting tons of hateful comments 24/7. Oh
Yeah.
my God. And in fact, they use it to build their account because they post the haters' comments. And guess what happens? People can't keep their eyes off of it. The haters' motivation completely failed. In fact, it backfired, right? They're making the person they're ripping on and annoyed with more famous.
Yeah. Clickbait.
It's crazy. But let me talk about this imposter syndrome bullshit. It's not bullshit. It's a thing. I get that people feel it. But I just want to throw out a quote that's going to sound really harsh, but it's something I always bring up because it's no joke. And it's from this guy named Andre Dubuse. And he said, shyness has a strange element of narcissism, the belief that how you look and how you perform is actually important to other people. Why are you, like, there's an element of narcissism. What makes you think everyone cares? They don't care. I'm here to tell you at 51, no one gives a shit. They all give a shit about themselves, okay? So if you have imposter syndrome, you have to do a little pep talk. Now, I'm a public speaker. I feel if someone canceled at the last minute and I was in the front row at Madison Square Garden and they were like, shit, can someone come up and talk for 30 minutes on anything? Without being prepared, I would jump up, literally have no issue taking that mic and going for it. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't a moment before I speak or I do something where it's not imposter syndrome per se. It could be nerves. It could be circumstances. Maybe you saw something that hit you the wrong way a few minutes before. Either way, in that moment, I'm self-talking. What am I doing? Usually when you have imposter syndrome, it's in the pursuit of something you want that you've been dreaming about. Okay. So the pep talk would be, bitch, you wanted to do this. You signed up for this. You signed up for this. You've been speaking, you've been taking all these lessons, you've been acting, but like, what are you doing? Get your ass up there and go kick some out. Like, you know what you're doing. Now, I don't suggest anyone do that if they're not skilled and have had practice in public speaking. Okay, I would never suggest that. But even with me, it's like I got to remind myself if I get a moment of, uh-oh, right? Like one time I was about to go on stage to speak, and the person that was speaking before me was so fucking boring. They had put everyone to fucking sleep. And I was like, oh, dear God. And I'm literally sitting there going, oh my God, like, dude, like kind of looking at him like, you fucker, like, you're killing this, right? And but as a result, I was nervous because I'm like, oh God, now I'm gonna get this sleepy, awful, just audience that just is so bored. And so what did I do? I'm self-talking right before the mic's on me, and like I'm getting ready, and I'm telling myself, I said, you better go wake those motherfuckers up. You know how to do this. Let's go. Let's go give them what they came here for. Not some boring ass fucking talk. Let's go. Like it has to be that. But the thing is, no one else is going to do it for you. No one else is going to give you confidence. No one else is going to do it. And if you're looking outside yourself for that, it will never happen. So the imposter syndrome is real, but then you have to combat it. And usually it's with things like, you want this. You wanted this. Do you not want it? Are you going to give up on it? Because if you're not going to give up on it, this is what you got to do. Like, it's just sometimes you've got to pep talk your shit.
Yeah.
And also no one cares. They don't. No one cares. And I know you think they care, but they don't. The other thing about imposter syndrome is stop looking at other people's shit. You know what you can do on Instagram? You can mute every single account and their posts so that the only posts you see are the ones you want. So if you only want to see Caribbean luxury, European fucking whatever, like I do, right? Then all of the shit in my feed is just gorgeous, positive. And then if I want to check in on some other stuff, I'll go there separately. There are ways to avoid this.
Yeah, you can fix your algorithm and make it work for you. Exactly. And
it'll help with imposter syndrome because comparison is a disaster, and it is one of the main components of jealousy, and that just will flood right into it. So if you don't want to be hit by other people possibly doing what you're doing or whatever, then just remove it.
Just remove it. And
just remove the noise.
Is,
I don't want the extra noise while I've got I want all the good,
Yeah, and I was also reading a book. What is it? God damn it! I just had her fucking name. Anyways, it's a book about identifying and surviving narcissism, right? And I can't tell you how many times reading the book, like I was like, this really ties in not just with my family, but the religious aspect. Right. It's like there's varying degrees of narcissism. Is it
Yes, there
taught?
is.
Is it taught? Is it ingrained? Is it natural? What's a little bit of both? But also this religious aspect, this narcissistic aspect, it's like, what will other people think? You were not allowed to do anything that other people wouldn't like because you were being trained, indoctrinated to be a fucking people pleaser, not just for the Lord, but for everybody around you. And
Right.
so combating that and overcoming that, that's I feel like that's so weighted because it's not just healing your own shit and just trying to pep talk yourself, but healing generations of fucking familial trauma and curses. Like, what has this family been programmed to fucking do? Pass on
Well, and
and teach.
behavior being familiarized, right? And so then it becomes what you think is people always attract or go for if they're if they're not evolved enough yet, to what's familiar. That's why, like, why would a woman ever go date a guy and continue to date him if he physically abused her, if she watched her mother being physically abused? Why would anyone do that? But they do it all the fucking time. When they separate a woman and a baby from like child protective services, the mother has beaten this child, the baby will still reach out and cry for the mother as they're taking it away because it's what's familiar. It doesn't mean what's healthy, right? It's
Exactly.
just psychology 101. And so, one of the best books I've ever read, if you've ever dealt with narcissism or narcissism issues in families or anything, it's literally, I've interviewed her. She's amazing. It's literally one of the best books. When I give this book to people who are struggling with that, they just bawl their eyes out because it's like, oh my God, I feel heard. And it's called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist. And it's by Debbie Mirza, Mirza,
Okay.
Debbie, Debbie Mirza. The covert, sorry, yeah, the covert passive aggressive narcissist. And it's amazing. She was in a marriage for 20 something years with a covert passive aggressive narcissist. Sometimes it's not so obvious. And
Yeah.
anyone who's been through that or needs to heal from that, I suggest getting that book. You will really start to understand what to look out for, understand what you were a victim of, and understand also why it is that you might have drawn that in, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah, that's a big one.
It's so big, and I've got to tell you, there's been a couple times just reading books, or just information on narcissism and given examples. I'm like, oh, that's what that was. Like, oh my God! And I always wondered, like, going to other people's houses and experiencing my friends with their folks, and like when shit was healthy, I was confused. I was like, whoa, what do you mean? You guys just you can respect each other's boundaries like that? What the fuck?
Like,
I don't understand. I think I'm gonna throw up. And so like reading about it in bed, and just like all of a sudden crying, and my husband's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, this is my fucking life. Like I'm trying to heal from my goddamn trauma, and I didn't realize I had to heal this shit because I thought this was normal."
it ongoing. It's ongoing, especially if it's a family member, because it'll pop
Mm,
up over time and you
yeah,
got to just go, okay. So the deal with narcissists, though, is that they're unchangeable and not worth trying to correct. So you leave it. You absolutely ignore them. They are not worth your time at all. But
yeah,
a couple of quick points, even though this is an episode about narcissism, and I know the term gets thrown a lot. These people only do things at their convenience. So even if they're like, oh, hey, I wanted to drop off that thing you lent me, there's another fucking reason for it because they don't go out of their way
yeah,
unless they benefit from it. So that's like a huge one. And of course, in relationships, the love bombing, which is someone being like, too much too soon. You're so great. You're amazing. Okay. Not that that doesn't truly happen in life, but we have to think about the lack of self respect in a man or a woman who would just fucking be like, oh my God, you're so fucking amazing. Right? You'd be like, let me just go on a date. Just go on another date. Let's take a look because any self respecting individual is going to take that slow. That's why narcissists love bomb and then their relationships don't last longer than 3 months, usually.
yeah.
It's just like if they're found out. But yeah, so However, narcissism is not uh, being having self-love,
No.
and being selfish with your desires, and I mean selfish in the best possible way. And so, let's talk about boundaries. I had a good one recently. I have a friend who's very, very direct, always been direct, just like me. And they were dealing with like a in-law relative
Hmm.
who they'd gotten into a blow up with, and they were texting back and forth, and part of the text message from the in-law was something like, if we're going to have a friendship in the future, then blah blah blah. And my friend wrote back, hey, let me just make this clear, being friends is absolutely off the table. You do not have any of the qualities or characteristics that I seek in a friend, so why don't you just get that out of your mind? That's not an option. You can't be any more fucking
Oh
direct than
my
that.
God. All of me just
You
fucking
can't be. I mean, I
relaxed.
was like, oh, that's so good. Oh, so good. So good. And it's just, you know what I
Beautiful.
mean? It's just, and then, not, and by the way, I was saying it more contentious than they felt it. They were like, um, it's off the table. Like, I don't, they're
I'm
like,
so sorry. That's not a viable
you don't have
option.
to,
Thank you. Yeah.
so,
Absolutely.
you're freezing up a little bit.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, I think my face just got stuck.
But I love that directness, and it's not always appropriate. Um, but it will reap major benefits because you get what you want when you tell people what you want, when you don't agree to do what you want when you want. My perfect example is this that I always give. It's like we've all been in this situation. Your friend's like, hey, what are you doing next Thursday? And you go, oh, nothing, because you're not at that moment. And then they go, great, can you? And then the request is something no one wants to fucking do, right? That like is a shitty request. Okay, that's fine. But see, in that situation, I don't take that fucking bait. If they're like, what are you doing next Thursday? I'm like, why are you asking?
Depends what the fuck you're gonna ask me next.
It depends or if you've already screwed it up and you said I was available and they go, great, can you drive me to the airport, whatever it is, then you
No.
can say, sorry, I can't do that, or sorry, not available. And they go, but I thought you said you were free all day. And you go, yeah, but I didn't say I was available for that. I'm not available for getting tricked into shit. Don't try to chump me. Don't have indirect communication. Don't be one of these people. And that's how, if you're constantly saying yes and getting trapped, these are some of those small things. Hey, what are you doing Thursday?
That's people
Why are you
pleasers.
asking? And it's okay to say no, even if you're free. Stop getting guilted into stuff. Stop feeling obligated, because then you know what happens. Then you're sitting around later on being a victim. Why me? It's you. And you're
Resentment.
the people pleaser. Yeah, and then you resent everyone. You have covert contracts. You have resentments that will then come up 2 months, a year later, and you'll be like, remember the time because you never fucking said anything. So you have to speak up. My mother always used to say, take your mouth with you,
Hmm?
just wherever you go, right? You just take your mouth with you. And so there are also a lot of times to just shut it. Man, I don't, people have tried to virtue signal me, like, why aren't you speaking up about this? Or why aren't you speaking? I'm like, motherfucker, what? That confidence is not speaking about everything in the fucking world, talking about everything, telling your mother you think her sweater's ugly and I just came to your house for Thanksgiving. I'm not going to do that. It's rude, right? Right? So if your mother's like, what do you think of my sweater? I'm going to say it looks great on you and we're moving on, right? You know what I mean? So it's not, you're always authentic in every minute. You're always exact. Of course not. There's a place for some white ass lies, right?
There's
Let's
gotta be
be
there's
nice to people.
you gotta have confidence and awareness together. You gotta have
There
the
you go.
awareness, the
Choose your
understanding.
battles wisely.
This part, and it goes back to like you don't always have to give an answer for everything. Growing up with people pleasers and narcissists who demanded you to be a people pleaser, that was difficult. It was so hard to set those boundaries. Like my answer is no. Like how dare you be rude? That's so disrespectful. Me honoring my needs and me knowing when to speak up about something that I'm not okay with, it is not being selfish. It's
Mm-mm.
necessary.
Yes.
And it's like, you're so selfish. You don't want to do this. You're just like so and so. It's like, don't do that either. Don't do that either. I'm sorry that this inconveniences you, me being myself.
That's
But
right.
that sounds like a real you problem.
That's a great response.
Yeah.
That's a great response.
And I wish I would
That
have said,
sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. And here's the thing, like I know I sound harsh, but I'm just impressing upon everyone listening. Um, I am a like a really sweet, lovey-dovey babies, doggies, puppies person, okay? Right? And like it's
yeah,
not about being a dick. If you meet someone who's a dick or a bitch or an asshole, they're usually misusing confidence. These are usually bullies, okay?
yeah,
Just because someone's like outspoken and doesn't make them confident, and shyer people will think that that's confidence.
but it's
Quiet can be
not.
confidence. Shy is different. Some of the quietest people in the room are the most confident. The loudest guy in the room, usually the most insecure. So, it's about walking into a room. I want everyone to be able to walk into a room full of strangers, like a restaurant, a party, and not care whether anyone asks them about themselves, when they could just don't give a shit. They could just observe and not be talked to all night and just have a great time. That's quiet confidence. And that's how I walk in a room. I don't need anyone to know I'm a best-selling author. I talk about, I don't care if you're impressed with me.
I
And
fucking
you know
know.
what I mean? I'm there to learn about other people. Maybe not. Maybe I just want to observe, or maybe I'm just going to be the interviewer and get to know people. But I want everyone to be able to walk into a room with a bunch of strangers and feel confident and comfortable in themselves. And it's achievable. It's so achievable. It's just a little bit of practice. And people pleasers are usually narcissists, and people pleasers are liars. So when you're not speaking up, when you've ever heard the term, if anyone said this about you and you're listening, like, oh, they're just too nice, like the bad things happen to you that are lame, and then people are like, oh, the problem is like Mary's just so nice. Take it as a slam, not a compliment, because they just called you a liar. You're not too nice, and that's why those things keep happening to you. You never get Thanksgiving off work, even though you've been there for 10 years, because you don't speak up.
Yeah.
You're not honest about what you want. So it is really being a liar. And when you put it to people that way, they're like, well, I don't want to be a fucking liar. And you're like, yeah, you don't. You really don't. And when you lie about who you are or what you like so that someone will like you, you can never believe it. You will never believe it. It will cause so many problems, in your life. And, I remember one time, I laugh about it now, and I laugh about it with this person now, actually. But I met someone 20 years ago online. And, people have their online profile. And I dated them. And then, like, we moved in together. And, like, then one day I pulled out the profile and I go, hey, I got a question for you. Who the fuck is this guy? Because this guy said he went to the gym every day. This guy said he loved hiking. You fucking hate hiking. This guy said. And you know what he said to me? He looked at me and he goes, I told you what you wanted to hear so that you would like me,
Wow.
which is very honest. But he had a big issue being a people pleaser and also lying, because no one's liking you then for who you are, because you're not sharing it. And then you can never believe it. So now you're going to be like, well, I can't trust them. It's a bad soup.
Yeah, all of it, every
Best
single
book on that
aspect.
is by Dr. Robert Glover. It's for women too, but it's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Worth reading. He's the
Oh,
people pleasing expert, and it'll be applicable for women as well.
I love that. Okay. Well, I know what I'm giving for gifts next throughout the year. I don't even give a fuck. It doesn't have to be a
Just send your
holiday thing.
family like a box of those books. No, just
And
kidding.
be like, distribute at the next family meeting, or whatever the fuck.
Well,
And
and have you heard friends are God's way of apologizing for your family, right? So that's
oh
another term that's
god.
used, people say, and it's true. You have to get good friends, then your friends can be your family if
And,
you're dealing with something tough,
and I love that family. I feel like friends are the family you make, and that has been the most home I've ever felt. And I married my best friend, and I love that shit. And
That's
so
so cute.
I'm not saying everything's all like I'm shitting rainbows and barfing up unicorns
Yeah,
and
it's not like
shit.
he wouldn't annoy the shit out of you at
Oh
like
fuck! Have you
many
heard
times
him
in life,
chew
but yeah.
popcorn? Have you heard Bobby chew popcorn?
No.
But he's my best friend, and I love the shit out of him.
Right, 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 right.
Like he gets home and I'm like, good, I can smell you again. It's just, but so friends are the family you make. You make your own family, and oh fuck, I had a point and I just lost it because I was remembering my
Like
husband's smell.
you and Bobby, even on our text thread that we got going, there's times when probably all three of us had had an individual thing that day and found comfort in that thread in that friendship, right? And those things, you know?
Yeah.
I know I do. I call up my friends when I need to
Yeah.
vent, download, have a witness, whatever it is. So forming your own tribe and attracting those, and you can use law of attraction and intention to do this. I've met so many new, one of my best friends is 16 years younger than me, and I would have never guessed that. And we've now been friends for like 7, maybe 10 years, but I would have never guessed that at the time that someone that much, like I just, but I was
Yeah.
open to new, and I put down exactly what I wanted in friends, and I got that. And to think that as an adult, you would make like really lifelong good friends, but I did like literally 3 or 4 of them. So I think that's the most important thing. And back to quickly ancient Greece, because you brought it up earlier. I have a degree in philosophy, so I love this shit. But one of the things about Epicurus is, he was always about like living the good life, happiness, and but you only need a few things. And he didn't feel that romantic love was part of it, but he felt that friends were, that they were the most
Yes.
essential. Yeah. He was like, you can go without romantic love. Like, you can find sex anywhere, whatever. Like, but you cannot, you have to have friends. And so that's what we found too in some confidence and psychology studies. You just need at least one person. And even if that's the lonely guy who goes to the 7-Eleven every day and the guy who gives him the paper and they have a little chat, you need like a guy, you need a somebody.
You need somebody.
It's usually for other people, it's more than that, right? But um, get yourself a tribe, man. Develop a tribe.
And allowing yourself to be authentically, and sorry, let me start that over. I think in finding your tribe, you allow yourself a new opportunity. Like, this is where I'm stepping in as my most authentic self. This is where I'm just absolutely vulnerable. There
Yeah.
is no mask. This is who I am. And that is where confidence, I think, can be found again and built upon, because it's like,
Yes.
I'm safe somewhere. I'm not safe
Yeah.
over here, but finding that safety and that vulnerability. And Liz and I, when we created Cosmic Cunts, it was like, we were walking back from the beach and we were just chatting. It's like, I love that I can talk to you like this, and I wish we could create a community of more like-minded people where it's like we can challenge each other's beliefs. We don't have to necessarily believe the same things, but like-minded in the sense that you are safe here. You can be vulnerable. I'm not going
Yeah.
to judge and criticize you. I may not agree with what you have to say, but you know what? I'm going to allow you the fucking space to be able to be that raw version of yourself, because you deserve that. Because I
Yeah.
deserve that. And this is where we can build each other up and tell you, you're not crazy. You are not bad. You are not wrong, because you decided to respect yourself and your boundaries by saying no. I'm not going to tell you that you're bad and wrong because you fucking want to overthrow the government. I love the fire in you. I'm going to find the beauty in it. you know?
I'm not going to invite your ass over for Thanksgiving, but I admire your fire. Yes. If you can come up with one good thing. I remember one time we had a friend, got together with someone we really all didn't like, but we were like, well, what could we got to find like one, like what's the thing? So we're not negative downers about it, right?
Yeah.
And the
What's the
one thing that
cunt
we
hair
could
approach?
find was that she loved the shit out of our friend. And so every time something with her would come up, we'd be like, but she loves the shit out of him. And who wouldn't want your friend to be just like loved and adored, right? So, but that was the only thing. So if there's just one thing you can hold on to, right? A positive about someone you got to deal with and you disagree with them in every way, morally, ethically, whatever, just find one thing, even if
Yeah.
it's their fire.
Yeah, that cunt hair of a silver lining. It's like, you
That's
know
right.
what? I fuck with that. I fuck with that heavy.
Fuck with that energy, different circumstance, but no.
Exactly. Like, it's,
Or
yeah.
nothing at all, but move on. I mean, here's the thing too, like life is short and I have learned I'm not spending time and I'm not wasting it with people that I just don't care about, who aren't ethically, morally aligned with me. Obviously I interview people on my podcast. I don't know all of their beliefs and their whole life, right? And obviously some of them write books about it and I interview them. I don't know them well, but it's people who are going to be my friends, who I'm going to trust with my life, my information, everything just about me. And to be a support for me, we got to be aligned in a lot of ways. And so sometimes you got to break up with friends, man. And I've had to
Yeah.
do that throughout my life. There's many that have just gone to the wayside. Life's too short, man. It's just too short. So I would say if there's anything here for 2025, look at your friend circle. I'm not saying cancel them all out, but maybe do we need to diffuse some of the downers? Do we need to not pick up the call every time, 4 times a week Mary's calling? Maybe we need to kind of edge out. Maybe we need to start to, bring in some different vibes. I've had to do this many times in life and it feels so good. So the tip off, right, is how do you feel after hanging out or talking to someone? How do you
Yeah.
feel? How do you
Yeah.
feel? And if you're not stoked and alive and kind of, then you know what? Yeah,
Bring it down. Bring it down.
we're
Yeah.
gonna shoot it
And
down.
it's perfect,
Or a
especially right
shutdown.
now.
Bring it
Yeah.
down or a shutdown. Could be
Yeah.
both.
But you follow your gut, follow your heart, blast. Yeah, and it's like so important to do, especially right now. Like, I was thinking about like, what do I have to clean before the new year? What do I want to get rid of? And it's not just the physical things in our home every day, energetically, what is in our lives constantly, like what is the energy. You're right, how do I feel after that interaction? So very important stuff, and having the confidence and the trust in yourself to make those decisions, to have that awareness, like I can have the confidence to say I can think critically, and I don't have to listen to what everybody else is saying, because that's not necessarily my fucking jam. That is not my path, right? So having the confidence with stepping into this new year, stepping into these new goals and manifestations. What do we want? How do we want to feel? It's not necessarily like, let's look at the end goal and that's the only thing that we have. But how do we want to feel on the journey to get there? What do we want this year to bring for us on an energetic level? So I really want to thank you for coming on with me today. I am so grateful to be starting my year off with Cosmic Cunts with you. I'm
Yay.
really grateful to be starting off this new year with the tribe, the tribe that gets us. Uh,
Let me throw out some questions to ask oneself in this new year here a little bit.
yeah.
First of all, help the worthy, not the needy. So, are you too busy encouraging, rescuing others, and helping everyone else navigate their shit versus your own? So, are you overgiving? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a little people pleasery, but it could be a sneaky one. So, look where you're overgiving. Then I would ask yourself, okay, like, am I apologizing a lot? Am I saying, like, you know what I mean? Is there anything I wish I could change about my employment experiences? Am I like, I always get fired? Like, are there patterns? Start to analyze the patterns. Look at, are there negative stories or labels that were put on me by parents or shit like this? And did I adopt that shit? Because I've got, if you have time, I want to tell a really quick story that I tell in my book. The person is raised with a dad that like is a little bit of a hothead. And so the hammer goes missing and they're like, "Where's the hammer? I know you stole the hammer. I know you stole the hammer." And the son is like, "I didn't take the frickin' hammer," right? And then the dad would find the hammer but not apologize. So this would happen, right?
Yeah.
So what we noticed though is that then in every single fucking work environment, he was a contractor, he would always get bullied, and they'd always blame him for for something that went wrong. Would blame him even though it wasn't his fault, and they would just say nothing. And so finally, I was like, this is really interesting that this keeps happening to you. Like I've never seen this pattern, but it's a pattern I see. What happened when you were growing up? Like, were you always made to feel wrong when you weren't? Like, what? And they were like, told me the story about the hammer and a couple of other things that were very similar. Being blamed for shit, and then like, even if the parent realized that they were incorrect, they wouldn't like apologize. So this person literally just drew in, right?
Yeah.
Authority figures, again, familiar, not healthy.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to take a look at these patterns. What do you not like? Are you always getting fired? Always getting bullied at work? All right, take a fucking look. What's going on there, right? So what stories were declared about you? What stories did you take from families, teachers, friends, all of this kind of stuff? And then also, how have they kept you from self-esteem? right?
Yeah.
Take it a step further. How has this kept me from like being confident? How has this kept me from success, maybe? And also, are any of them true? You know, because the truth is about this person is that like they never were the cause of the hammer missing or things going wrong on the contract. It wasn't until they spoke up to the bully and then they started to change it that their work stuff became amazing. Every single contractor they worked with was like, we loved working with you. You're fantastic. And the person started to call people out if they were starting to get bullied. But it's like if you're walking out in the world and you've got some subconscious fear that was developed there. So ask yourself these things. These are like worthwhile self inquiries,
Yeah.
about your upbringing and your childhood. And it's not about blame. It's just about, oh, I see where that came from. Yeah, I'm going to change that motherfucker. I'm changing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to also be well on the healing journey to recognize when it wasn't your fault, wasn't your problem, but
No.
also to not make yourself a fucking victim. And I'm so guilty of that. Like, I'm a victim of my childhood. No, no, no. It's time for me to fucking grow up. That's what that is.
I love that you said that. I talk about this in my book, but I had someone who has gone to therapy like so many times, like for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But usually, sometimes therapy can be used when you have had some family abuse or trauma. It can be used to continually just like
Introspection.
right, but also the person sometimes uses it as a way to excuse the things in their life. See,
Yeah.
aha, another therapist just told me that my parents are fucked up and they raised me wrong. Knew it. See, told you. And it's just a reason. They're just continually confirming the victimhood. And so one
Yeah.
time this person said to me, they were like, well, Elle, you were raised differently. I was raised. I said, you better stop right the fuck there. You've been in therapy for 40 fucking years. Fuck you. You are 50 plus years old. When are you going to stop blaming your parents and seeking therapy to validate the blame and just fucking do something about changing it? I
Yeah.
mean, literally at a certain point. So that can be, and this is why coaching is great versus therapy. I'm not saying that if you need therapy, coaching is going to work. You probably need therapy, but that's why I like it's onward and upward. It's forward thinking. It's not that we don't look at the past. It's not that we're not looking at that stuff, but we are moving through it and upward and onward versus and that's probably why they kept going to many psychologists. Again,
We're
because not wanting
correcting
to change,
steps.
just wanting to get validation of the victimhood. And this is why everything in my life is the way it is and why I can't do this and why I can't have that.
Change the fucking narrative. It's up
Yeah,
to
you
you now.
got to.
Balls in your fucking court.
No one's going to do it but you. No, literally, no one cares more about you than you, period. End of story. Not your mom, not your dad, nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody cares more about you than you.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you.
So 2025, everybody. If you're interested, listen, I've got a great, really inexpensive confidence masterclass that can really just get someone going. I also have a great free ebook. It's an interactive like journal. So it's like 35 pages. It's on self-esteem and confidence towards abundance and success. Just go to my website, elleruss.com, click on freebies, maybe just start with the free like ebook and start to work through some of these questions, start to do some of these exercises because you investing in yourself, even if it's time, right? Doesn't have to be money, right? But just investing in yourself breeds confidence. So
Absolutely. So yes, and I will share those links along with the podcast on social media and everywhere. So be sure to text me the link and I'll add it. And yes, for anybody who needs bumping confidence, anybody, everybody. I got to tell you, Confident as Fuck is a book that I constantly go back to. I've got my dog-eared pages. Do the fucking work on yourself. Do the fucking this is what the space is, Cosmic Cunts. It's to help you be on this journey, help you find tools to heal and grow, not just acknowledge and have the awareness, but also to do the fucking work. Walk through the shadows. You're not alone. You'll never be alone. You have to do a lot of the journey on your own, but that doesn't mean you're not supported and loved. We got you here. Thank you so much for your time, Elle.
thank
I
you.
am so grateful for you, and I'm so
I'm so
grateful
grateful for
to be
you.
able to talk to you. We text a lot, but this is nice. I love seeing your beautiful face.
I
Don't
love seeing you too.
don't make it weird, okay?
Mahalo, motherfucker.
All right, bitch. I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Have a good one.
You too.